Hello, once again, my name is Lyapa Mbewe and welcome to My World Podcast. As you know, we only host the very best in the industry. And today, I bring you a guest that has been here before. But the last time we had Lina, we didn't have the video version. So today we get to see how she looks like as she offloads all the wealth of experience and knowledge she brings to the table. Lina Lungu is Head Business Development Manager at the Lusaka Securities Exchange. So today we'll be looking at the performance of the LuSE over the past couple of months in the year 2023. But most importantly, we would like to get to know her and the role that she holds at the LuSE, and also just to get to know about how you can get started as an investor on the LuSE. So let's jump right into it. Lina, welcome to My World Podcast once again.
Hi, good to be here again.
Good to be here. Yes. You've become part of the furniture now. You're part of the family.
Yes, it feels like I am. It feels like I am, but it's exciting to be here again.
Awesome. So Lina, I know you're always talking numbers. Well, you're always talking LuSE and strategy and everything in relation to that. But before we jump into the serious stuff, I think I want to get to know you a bit more. So who is Lina away from work?
That's hard because Lina is very diverse. She's got a lot of interests, a lot of passions. But in a summary, who I am really a bubbly person. Sometimes I may not look like I am, but
I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah, sometimes I'm usually in serious mode in the workplace, but I am really quite vibrant, quite bubbly. I grew up sort of given quite a lot of, can I call it liberties? In that I got to explore different parts of myself. I got to travel quite a bit. I got to learn a lot of things when I was quite young. So that has also helped me as I've grown. In that I've picked up small nuggets of wisdom from the places I've been and the people I've met. That has also shaped and formed who I am today and how I look at things. So that's one aspect of me. Another aspect of me is that I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. Another one is that I have a real passion. It's an inside passion for pretty things. So graphic design, things which look nice.
Yes.
So that's a little bit about Lina on that end. In terms just of how I relate with people, I love interacting with people. I guess that also plays into part with my work.
Yes.
And what I do. Love interacting with people and love seeing the best out of people. So that's me. I mean, I can go on for ages because there's so much about me, but I mean, I'll give those few nuggets.
Okay, so I know we're having the conversation around the LuSE. Before we jump into the intricacies, can you give us a bit of a narrow down of what the LuSE does, and maybe just like a brief history lesson of the LuSE?
Okay, yeah. So let's go back to 1994. Or maybe let's do 1993. Let's go back to 1993. 1993, that's when the LuSE on paper was established as an entity. And even before that, let me maybe draw back a little bit before that as to how and why LuSE came about. During that era, around 1991, obviously there was a shift and change in terms of, a lot of entities were moving into the privatization era. So quite a lot of entities were now going private.
Yes.
Right? Because of that, obviously there was a need now to source for capital for these private firms and entities. So you need a platform where those private firms will get this money from. How are they going to raise funding to continue as a business? So essentially, that's now how capital markets started blooming in Zambia. So obviously you need to have a regulator, you need to have laws, rules, requirements and all that. So that was formed from the period around that time, let's say about 91, moving to 1993. There was work done between the government, between the United Nations Development Program, and then lastly, it was the IFC. So those were the parties who were involved in trying to help us put capital markets together in Zambia. Once that was done, SEC was now formed, then the rules were formed as how capital markets will run. Then came now LuSE, the stock market, the platform where now these companies can raise capital. So that's how it came about. So in 1994, we opened our doors.
29 years this year.
Yes, so next year we're 30. We're
Wow.
30. So we have moved a lot. Hopefully we can have a big celebration around that. For 30 years, we've moved. In the 30 years, sometimes people may think, oh, it's been a bit slow.
Yeah.
But looking back to where we started from and where we are today, I think we have made some significant strides in the capital markets.
22 listed companies.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we are moving, and I think more to come. We're excited. The landscape, I think, in terms of how we are moving in Zambia is changing. So a lot of people are getting interested in the capital markets. Before it wasn't so much, they were a bit hesitant.
Yeah.
Now people are keen to say, oh, what's this capital markets about? So both companies and even individuals are finding it very interesting. So we are ready to see more companies list and more individuals participate.
Okay. I think some great news to share with everyone, and maybe something that our viewers might not be aware of, is the LuSE has been trending as the top performing stock market in Africa for 2020 and 2021.
Yes.
You guys should be excited.
That's
proud. Amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, there's so many factors. We're happy to have reached such milestones.
Yes.
Economic conditions, investor reactions, and how investors have felt in terms of investing has changed over the past few years. So a lot of these things are good. They've played positively for the market as well. So we have seen that, and I mean, it's a good sign.
It is.
It's a good sign for capital markets in Zambia to say that we are not dead. We're still here. People are investing. People are interested. Companies are investing.
Yes.
So we are keen to see this trend continue, and we'll do also our level best from an exchange perspective to make sure that trend continues as well.
Which is great, especially now. I know corporates understand how the stock market works, but then we're now trying to penetrate the retail base and just to see how retail investors can come on board. So such is really great news for someone to come on board.
Excellent. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, okay. So before we go into some of the opportunities and some of the challenges, can you give us a bit of a roundup of the performance of the stock market year to date for the year 2023, how the LuSE has been performing, and maybe highlights of some of your favorite, let me put it that way. No, I'll get you in trouble.
Yes.
Highlight some of the companies and their performance on the stock market.
Okay. I'll speak to the LuSE because that's a number which is very open, very available. So maybe for those who may not completely understand what LuSE is, it's the Lusaka All Share Index, and pretty much an index is essentially translating or telling you the upward and downward movement of the stock market. So if this LuSE value goes up, it means there's a positive upward trend in the stock market over all the shares which are issued on the market. If it's the number dips or goes down, it is what is called bearish or lower trend in the market. So the market has dipped in terms of share value across the shares which are listed on the LuSE. So whenever we look at this number, that's essentially what it's telling you. So it changes every day depending on what's happening on the market. So just given year to date, so to date we are seeing that the LuSE has been stable. There hasn't been any sharp jump or sharp dip. So it has maintained, and I think that's coming off, as we said, we had a good year last year. We had a good year. So so as we're going, we are happy to see that it's stable. Obviously, we would like to see a more upward trend as we go for the benefit of the market, investors, and all those involved. You'd like to see an upward trend, but as you know, as we continue to think about these things, we need to note that there are so many factors at play when we're looking at the stock market. It's not just the market is the one changing. There's what are investors interested in, what are the macroeconomic factors, or maybe to simplify it a bit, what's happening in the economy.
Of course,
that affects what's happening on the global economy as well. So all those play a part, but we're happy to see that it's stable, even given the fact that obviously around the world, globally, it hasn't been so stable.
No, it hasn't.
I think we're hoping to keep that consistent and as we go, we hope to see the market maintains that stability.
You know, I'm glad that you're looking at it from like a global perspective, because then it should translate of how proud we should be of how our markets are performing. The kwacha last year was named the best performing currency in the world. We have a best performing stock market in Africa. In as much as it might not look so on a local level, or when we look at it from like a short-term perspective, but then there's something that we're probably doing right. When the stock markets on a global scale are dipping, we're seeing quite a lot of challenges on a global scale, but then we can sit here and say, look, we haven't seen it on a worse view, but then it's been consistent and it's been stable. So we should be glad.
Yeah, it's something that we should be happy about, number one, but also we should take advantage of.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be a shame actually if we look at this and say, oh, the stock market has been performing well, it's been consistent, without taking the opportunity, right? Whether it's investing as a retail person or an individual rather, or it's as a corporate. I think there is quite good opportunity there.
Okay. So we can talk about everything that's going right, but then we can't ignore the fact that there are some challenges. And I feel one of the biggest challenges is the small retail base on the LuSE. Why do you feel individuals or individual investors are not jumping the gun to come on and invest on the LuSE?
I think there are a lot of factors at play because individuals differ.
Yes.
But as a general thought, I would think that number one, we are not familiar with capital markets.
It's a financial literacy thing.
So it is. Yeah. It's a major financial literacy gap which we need to fill. And financial literacy, I always mention it whenever I'm speaking, is that financial literacy is not just about head knowledge. I can have all the knowledge in that, I actually need to execute.
Yes.
So I'll give an example of a bank or something. If I go and start telling people, oh, you know, here's a bank, this is how it works, this is what you do, if you want to put money in the bank, this is what, and people go, oh yeah, that's great.
Yes.
And don't do anything about it. The bank will have no customers, right?
Of course, yeah.
So naturally, it's the same thing in the capital markets or even in the pensions and insurance side, because that's another side. We come to this place where people maybe have watched a lot of movies, have got a misconception about what the stock market is.
Yes.
So before they even do the research, they've already got a preconceived idea of what it is, without actually delving into the information, understanding it, and then saying, actually, this is workable. So I think we've got that gap in terms of financial. So that's why the retail base is small. I mean, other factors to deal with it as well. We need to have a different view as citizens, as people in corporates, as government, to see how we can create an environment or policies that will help retail investors see the value in investing on the stock market or investing in capital market products. When we see this, for example, and government plays a huge role, whether we like it or not. So we need to be, as corporates, as individuals who understand and know the market, to go to government and say, look, this is the value that can be derived out of the market. This is how we can do it. And I'm glad that there's a capital markets master plan.
Yes.
So that's a key for us as capital markets to go, finally that it's launched, to say, look, government, here are some of the policies which we think would be helpful for us to promote capital markets. Because at the end of the day, I always say capital markets is a long-term game.
It is.
It's not just for me and Lyapa who are here. It's for our children and children's children.
Of course, yes.
So we need to think of it in that line. In the next 20 years,
how does it look like?
Right. How does it look like? If I don't invest or do something about it today, there's no hope for me in the next, my children's children in the next 20 years. So that's key.
Okay. Which then brings me to my second challenge or highlight of challenges is the buy and hold mentality by institutional investors. How do you then mitigate that when it comes to movement of the stock market, when, you know, all these institutions are buying and holding?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe to simplify it a little bit, the buy and hold strategy is one where, as you mentioned, institutional investors buy a lot of shares on the market. They buy a lot of shares and they hold it. They don't trade. They hold it for long periods of time, years on end. And it has been a challenge for the LuSE in that obviously there's no, it holds liquidity in the market. In other words, there's not much liquidity in the market because of that. It has been a challenge, and funny enough, around the world, not just Zambia where it's the issue, around the world, institutional investors do the same thing.
They do.
They buy and hold.
Yes.
I think it's a matter of formulating strategies around which other players can play in the market besides institutional investors, who can then come in and add that liquidity. So one side is retail investors, but that's not enough, right? There's also something else which is called market makers. So these market makers are typically larger institutions. Sometimes they are banks, and they will, well, essentially play that part of providing that liquidity by, if somebody wants to sell, they'll buy. If somebody wants to buy, they'll sell. You know, so they watch the market and see where the opportunities are, where there's a lot of selling on this side, so that they come in and they are the other party, either the buy or the sell side. That is a game changer for us if we implement that. Currently, we are in the works of looking at that, at how market makers can impact us. In terms of the institutional investors, obviously it goes again. Our biggest one is NAPSA, it goes to policy.
Yes.
So
I didn't want to say it out loud. I'm glad it came from
yes.
you.
Well, our biggest one is NAPSA.
Yes,
I don't think it's hidden. There are many other institutional investors, but the biggest one is NAPSA. So I guess it's also from there, they also have their own mandate. You know,
and they have their own reasons also.
Right. So what we can do from our end as the exchange is just to make sure that we include other parties who can play a role in this, and that's market makers. So I think it's key for us to keep looking at the challenges and switching them to opportunities. So for us, we see an opportunity in that challenge to say, okay, let's put market makers. Let's see how we can bring market makers onto the table. So that's in the works. And we are hoping as the exchange that it brings the much needed liquidity also we need in the market.
I mean, I think you've answered it very well. But I was looking at even like companies like ZCCM, and there've been quite a bit of announcements about their change in profit allocations and whatnot. That's great news for the corporation or the organization itself. But then you look at 70% of the shares, they are held by institutions, and then maybe only like 30% is left out for retail investors, or even less if we actually look at it from that point of view. So do you feel there are certain policies you can put forward, or maybe the LuSE in the long run can put forward to say, look, a certain percentage will always be reserved for retail investors? I know companies will always look out for the person, or we just want to raise capital. We don't care how, if it's an institution or if it's investors, but just give us our share. But then if we're going to look at creating opportunities for the retail investor, is there a way that you can set up policies strictly for that?
It's hard. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say it's hard per se as the LuSE to do it. A lot of these things are company values, and the only way we can sort of do that is how do we influence the investors who are involved, or how do we look at the investors involved? An example which you gave in terms of a company having mostly majority institutional, like 70%, and then 30% is retail. Again, world over, that's the standing order. The key there would be then, how do I make a retail base active and participate? There comes your financial literacy and your participation. How do we get them to participate? That way, your institution see the value of the retail investor, right? If the retail investors are on board, the company would will be more open rather to allocate more shareholding to a retail base. So it comes back to that, and that's why I say it's a key thing for us to look at the retail base more critically than we are. We're looking at it. Yes, there are always going to be corporates, institutional investors always have the money.
Of course.
So they
can't compete.
No, we can't, and that's okay. It's not because we're not competing. Retail isn't competing with institutional. They both need to be a part of the story. So institutional, naturally, because they've got the money, will take a bigger chunk. Now, how do we manage? How do we help the retail base get on board and be active on the market. That's another thing. Being active on the market, understanding the market, watching the market, all those play a part. So when a company, for example, who wants to list, they do take account to say, now, where's the retail base going to come from? I've got the institutional guy, easy. But now, where's the retail base going to come from? Are my shares going to move in value? Or is the value of the shares which are in issue going to increase over time? You need a good retail investor base. Right. So, because remember, your institutions are likely going to buy and hold. So all those things are put into place. So for me, as I see it, and even from a LuSE perspective, I guess, financial literacy is key. Then obviously with policy comes in again. But those are two key aspects which we need to look at critically if we want to increase the activity on the market.
Okay. Which then also falls into items like access to the capital markets. Okay, so
Right.
You've given me the information. I have the knowledge. I'm now financially literate. I want to get started. But then how do I actually gain access to the capital markets?
Right. And I think that's a challenge, again, which has been into an opportunity. So once you have a challenge like that, how do we get anyone to access the market? One, and then two, when you access the market, how do we make it as easy as possible for you to access the market? So there are two things. The only way you can access the LuSE is through a broker. Right, typically through a broker. So your brokers, a lot of them are limited to Lusaka. And that's limiting because there are millions of Zambians outside of Lusaka who want to invest on the market, right? So you have that challenge. And then in addition to that, the brokers are all here and you can't go physically, you can't travel all the way from Copperbelt, Eastern Province, Southern Province to come and see a broker. So how else can we do it? So technology, we have to leverage on technology. So we as a LuSE developed an app which received overwhelming response, and we are now revamping it to cater for the greater response. So those are some of the things which we are tapping into so that we can reach those who don't have access to the market. And so our first goal is to make sure people understand it, and we can do that through technology as well, through an application to teach, and also through advisors, through those who are leveraging on technology. We may not be in, for example, we may not be in Livingston, or we may not be in Chipata, or we may not be in Mongo. But the point is, at the end of the day, we should be able to teach using, wherever we are, we should be able to access those people.
And then get as many ambassadors to go and speak.
Right. So that's the target. So once you get that in place, then utilization of coming to the market and the app and it starts to fall into place. Thereafter, you're getting a retail base, which is, now I know how this thing works. And once they get a few tries, you realize that, and we saw it ourselves, when they start using the app and they say, okay, let me do this, let me try with 500 kwacha, they put 500 kwacha. Oh, some of it traded. Okay.
It actually works.
And then they'll say, okay, let's try again. Okay. Oh, maybe let me put 2,000 kwacha. So the numbers keep going up, and it's so exciting to see that there's an increase. So yeah, we are doing, the app 2.0 is coming, so do be patient with us.
Stu got his annual bonus and decided to invest it in a side hustle. He took his hard-earned cash and started giving out loans to people he knew and thought he could trust on his own. Weeks later, it was time for people to pay Stu back, but nobody paid him back and Stu lost all his money. Steve, Stu's workmate, also got his bonus and also decided to invest it. But he knew from before that he needed help doing so. Steve heard about PremierCredit's peer-to-peer lending platform, how he could invest in pre-qualified loan applications from people that have proven they could pay back with interest. Weeks later, Steve still has his bonus and is now enjoying the interest payouts. You can invest smart like Steve too. So, be a Steve and not a Stu. Visit PremierCredit.co.zm and start investing today. Investments start from as low as 500 kwacha. Terms and conditions apply.
So I do know you've mentioned quite a bit on the app. We saw an April, but then at the same time you've maintained like very good consistency on it. Like you've mentioned, you're trying to do an upgrade. And the relaunch of it, I'm sure more retail clients will come on board. And I hope you're ready for that, because then now people are starting down their toes, like, okay, the CMMP has been launched. There's a whole lot more financial literacy around stocks and how you can make money on the stock market. So when you do the relaunch, I'm very sure you have a whole lot of work waiting for you on the other side.
Definitely, and we hope by then as well would have pushed in terms of just helping people understand it as well. So the app itself, I'm excited to see where it's going in terms of the relaunch, and we're working so that it's helpful to the retail base. But at the same time, we're hoping also as they're going through the app that we are teaching them exactly what it is to trade on the market.
Of course, yeah. Okay. So away from that, or other than that, I do know that we have 22 listed companies, but then there's another side of the stock market, which is the quoted companies. So those two, we might have challenges, but then I'm sure we'd like to see more companies listed there. Are we looking at maybe setting up incentives that makes it a bit more attractive for me to want to list my companies? We do know that we have big corporations out there that qualify to list, but then why are they not listing?
It's a great point, and it's I think there's so many views and approaches on it. I'll start with your first part A, which was the quoted tier. So the quoted tier essentially is companies who go and register their securities with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is our regulator. They go and register the securities with them. Once they do that, automatically they become quoted. In the listing process, this is the first step to listing. So in this tier, there's no sort of limit. You can be there and you can literally squat there. But the idea is not to squat. The idea is to say, okay, you've done the first step, now you're moving now towards putting everything in order in terms of satisfying the listing requirements and then coming to the market as a listed entity. So there has been a challenge there. I think it's multifaceted in that some of the companies have had challenges trying to get themselves in order to list on the market. It's not a straightforward process.
Of course.
So that has been a challenge. But I think another aspect to why some of the companies aren't coming on board is, number one, I'll go back to policy. Because that's the first entry point, is policy. How can we as capital market players go to government? Again, Capital Markets Master Plan is going to work in our favor on this one.
Of course, yes.
To say, look, there are companies, if you listing on the market is a good thing for you as government, how do we now then put policies in place that will make it more attractive for people to list on the market? I'll give a very small example, well, not a small, a significant example actually, though it's got to do with the bond side. Green bonds. Green bonds are one of the newer products which now companies rather can issue on the market. And there has been an incentive in the budget. There was an incentive. There's a waiver of that 15% withholding tax. Right. So that again is a good thing, you know, for corporates and even retail clients alike. So when they see that, that's one way government is saying, come on now, let's list some a green bond on the market. Again, I think we can do that with so many other products. Equity in terms of listing, I think there are deliberate policies that we can put in place to say, okay, there are these companies, for example, maybe they're multinational, which come in to the country. Why don't you, how do we get them to say, come to the market? And it's come to the market, issue shares on the market. We need to be more intentional and be more clear as to how we want these companies when they come, especially multinationals, into Zambia. So policy is a key one. We can't run away from it because it's very easy for us as the exchange. We can't be counter what government is saying, counter policy.
Of course,
and any entity which is functioning in the country can't be counter what government says. So naturally you'd want to encourage government and those who are in these policy making positions to say, this is the value, here's how we can move and bring it towards them. So that's one. So two, the other one in terms of listing on the market, listing is a corporate decision. there's a big assumption, in fact, that listing is, you can encourage a listing, but you can't do a list, like you can encourage companies to come. At the end of the day, it's the board, the management within that time frame to then say, okay, yeah, let's go to market.
Yes.
They need to find value in it. In other words, again, going back to policy, going back to now, okay, rules, are these rules favorable?
Yes.
All those things. So, I mean, I can go on for decades on this topic, but simply said, there are quite a number of things which we need to make the business environment conducive for listed companies to then now say, this is a viable option for us. And I think we're working towards that. I think there is quite a bit of effort being put into it from the exchange side, from the regulator side. So we're hoping to see some traction now.
Okay. I know in your last point, you've highlighted almost all the opportunities that are there, in as much as we're looking at the challenges. But one opportunity that I would want us to narrow down on is SME listing. I think that's something that almost every small to medium enterprise should be excited about. And at some point, when my business gets to a certain point, I would like to list. I would, for expansion of my business, for funding. Yes. Is that something that the LuSE is looking at, creating that kind of environment where SMEs would like to come on board also, other than just the large corporates?
Yeah, we definitely are. SMEs are the heartbeat of the Zambian economy, and if we miss them, we're in a bit of a sticky spot. So we encourage then the SMEs to the two ways you can do it. There's one through the listing on what is called the alternative market. You can list as an SME on the market, and then there's also an online platform which we call the GEM portal. Which is a platform where SMEs can source for funding other than the exchange from other financiers. But essentially, just to keep it short and concise, essentially SMEs do need to, number one, put themselves together.
Of course, yes.
Funding, unfortunately, especially in today's world, is not going to come easy.
No.
So there needs to be effort and work put into getting yourself in order as an SME. Financials, putting your things in your books, all those things are essential. And there are quite a number of companies and businesses around willing to give advisory, willing to help SMEs. So I think the opportunity is ready. So if you want, grab what are the requirements for listing on the alternative market and start working towards them. So I think we've done a good job as the exchange to make sure that the requirements are suitable for SMEs. They are not as, essentially they're similar to corporates, except they have been really brought down so that we can reach to the SME. So definitely big emphasis on SMEs.
Okay. And like part of the opportunities that are there, like you mentioned, there's green bonds, there are ETFs, and so on and so forth. And you have highlighted that these are some of the items that you are encouraging individuals out there, corporates out there, to see if they can issue out some and almost like get into this new side of the market. To encourage people to come onto the stock market. As we summarize, or maybe to conclude, what words would you want to put out there, especially for both the retail investor? I know we do have quite a number of retail investors that will be listening to say, look, come on board. I know the LuSE average is about 20% thereabout per annum. That is great. Those are investment vehicles that almost everyone should be looking to jump on. And also stocks on a global level have always been or highlighted as one of the best investment vehicles. Coming from you, especially from the LuSE, I would like someone to hear that from you.
Yes. I mean, to round up, I mean, you're right. I mean, over time, and that's what the beauty of first of all, investing on the stock market is that the instruments are long-term instruments. Even if the challenge, I'll try and summarize this. The challenge we do have in Zambia is that we tend to be more short-term in terms of how we plan our finances. So short-term financial instruments are more attractive to us rather than long-term financial instruments. So a key thing I would say, number one, is for retail clients to look above and beyond your death,
Yes.
essentially. So
Yeah.
you will, yes, you over time, and if you start early, you'll see value of your shares increase, and you create and generate wealth
Of
for
course,
yourself.
yes.
Same thing with bonds over time, but you'd actually need to start.
Yes, like get started.
You can't kind
yes.
of dream it and think, okay, yeah, I'll start at 50, I'll start at 60. By that time, you're about to hit your grave. So,
That's true, yeah.
so what I would advise, strongly advise, and strongly ask is that we start early. Doesn't matter if you're a child listening to this and you're only in grade 5, go and tell your parents to open a share account for you.
Yes.
If you are in uni, use some of that money to invest on the market. If you are starting your work, use some. At every given point, we need to start.
You just need to get started, yeah.
You need
And
to
also
start.
because the share prices are quite minimal. They're
Right.
quite minimal. You
Right.
have a company like Standard Chartered that is trading below 1/15
Right, right.
around that much.
Right,
Yeah. So
right.
you can afford to buy 100 shares and 150 kwacha.
Yeah, it's workable.
Yes.
It's not beyond us. So the
Yes.
opportunity is there.
Yes.
And we just need to think long term. We need to think, okay, in X amount of years, where do I want to be?
Yes.
Where do I want to get to? So that's on the retail side. On the corporates, especially for the SMEs, I would say you again start.
Yes.
Because the backbone, a lot of people think that it's maybe the banks. Or the backbone of any financial sort of sphere around the world is you have to have a mix of all your capital market players, your
Yes.
pensions, insurance, your capital markets, and your money markets.
Yes.
So the three need to work. And we need to, so if you're just leaning on one, you're not deriving value out of the other two.
Yes.
So for you to now generate wealth, which is what we're trying to say for corporates as well as individuals, you need to piggyback on all three.
Yes.
So I think it's crucial for corporates to start now looking into how they can raise money through capital market vehicles. And believe me, you can create them. There are ways you can make capital market instruments to work for you.
Yes.
So I think there shouldn't be a fear. Let's be inquisitive as SMEs. For large corporates, do come to the market. They understand the drill. Do come to the market. I think Zambia is also well positioned as a financial hub. We are trying with the capital markets master plan. That's the plan. Is we need to be a financial hub. And we need to start somewhere to get to that point. So we are willing to hear and listen to corporates and retails, and we're willing to see how we can best make the market conducive for them to participate.
I like that. And I feel really for anyone that's here, that's watching and listening to this, you realize that she has highlighted some of the opportunities that are there, more importantly than the challenges, that even in the challenges there are quite a number of opportunities that we can look out for. And we have 9 listed stockbrokers. You can always have a conversation with a stockbroker close to you. You can look them up on any of their website, sit down with them, ask them all the questions. That's why they're there. Remember, you can't go to the LuSE directly, but you can always go to the LuSE through your stockbroker, and they'll help you facilitate how you can become a shareholder, how you can list your company there, and just look out for opportunities that are there. Remember, it's the Lusaka Securities Exchange, so away from the stock market, there are other securities that you can explore on the capital markets. Yeah, and I think Lina is the best person to always have this conversation with, and I'm glad that you're always open to have the conversation with us here on My Wealth Podcast. Best believe that we'll be calling you back.
No
Yes.
problem. Yeah, it's such a joy. It's so good to be here and
Yes.
have these conversations with you. Yeah, we look forward to more in the future.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. So this has been My Wealth Podcast with myself, Lyapa Mbewe. Remember to get started on being a shareholder, and also so that you can be part of the economy that you're part of, which is being in Zambia and just harnessing the development that's around you. So get started, have a conversation with a stockbroker. You can go to the website, the LuSE website. You'll find the list of all the stockbrokers that are here in Zambia. Get in touch with one of them and let them help you get started. It doesn't matter how much you have, you can always get started. Get into the industries that you'd like to get into, and let's see how we can move our country forward. So from myself and my team at My Wealth Podcast, and more importantly, brought to you by PremierCredit, the number one company to go to when it comes to peer-to-peer lending. So you also want to ensure that you have peer-to-peer lending on your portfolio. So look up Premier Credit and see how you can get started on your peer-to-peer lending journey. Until next time, bye-bye.